Well, imagine a police officer saying you don't have to follow the Constitution. Well, Officer Richard Racine of Helmetta, New Jersey, resigned today after a video was posted online telling a local resident he doesn't have to follow the Constitution because President Obama doesn't. Well, Helmetta resident Steve Ronco was called in by local police for taking photos outside the precinct and insists, to the police anyway, he insisted he had the constitutional right to record in a public place.
Under New Jersey law, with the alarming and all that, I don't fall under alarm because I'm in a public building recording, which is my first and second.
You know what? I really don't even care about that because Obama has decimated the freaking Constitution. So I don't give a damn because if he doesn't follow the Constitution, we don't have to.
There is a new report that shows the greatest threat facing this country is right here at home. There is a new study out from the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism, better known as START. Now, START is a government program funded by the Department of Homeland Security. They're supposed to know the threats. START believes the greatest potential threat to America is the sovereign citizen movement.
America better wake up if we're going to live in this country with any kind of freedom and liberty.
The video now under the microscope. Guests at a popular casino resort roughed up by hotel security. The disturbing images caught on tape some time ago, raising questions now.
With guests claiming they were badly beaten, stomped on, and roughed up after disagreements with the staff of one of the biggest hotels here, Harrah's. Watch what very few would consider to be good hospitality.
They grabbed him and just slammed him to the floor.
Then, as mother Renee and daughter Andrea headed away from the scene toward their room, security swooped in to stop them. First, the teen daughter is wrestled to the ground and handcuffed, and then mom brought down and dragged off by a man in shorts her lawyer says is the casino's head of security.
Well, Brian Ross, ABC News.
But its director of security, Doug Rule, would not answer any of our questions.
Sir, we're not allowed to comment on any of this. Do you think this was appropriate, Mr. Rule? Did you go over the line?
A group of women say their rights were violated when they were stopped from praying at the Dublin Mall.
All my life I've come to this mall, and I don't think anything could offend me more than asking me not to pray.
Tammy Brantley is the leader of Dublin Girls Run, a group that's been walking and praying at Dublin Mall every Tuesday evening since last November.
The prayer is never loud. Sometimes it may be long, but the only way you can hear is if you actually get into the circle that we all form.
But she says that all changed 2 weeks ago.
We were out getting ready to do our prayer, and as we were bowing our heads, the security guard walked over and asked us not to pray.
Brantley says the guard explained that prayer wasn't allowed in the mall. He said that even included praying before a meal at the mall's food court.
We never in a million years thought that this kind of behavior would come here. And it's here.
A federal judge agrees a monument displaying the 10 Commandments in front of a New Mexico City Hall is a violation of the First Amendment. It's a result of a 2-year-long lawsuit. Now the city must remove the 3,000-pound monument.
This is clearly not a historical document, but is in fact a religious doctrine.
The court acknowledged the 10 Commandments have, quote, secular significance in the country's heritage, but says the city violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment when government officials endorsed a religious message.
Well, Baltimore City's new curfew rules go into effect tonight. They are some of the strictest curfew guidelines in the country.
Baltimore Mayor Stephanie Rawlings-Blake getting a first-hand look at where police will take curfew violators. The Lillian Jones Recreation Center is well equipped to keep kids occupied. The children will also be evaluated by social workers.
Baltimore's updated curfew laws being met with opposition, skepticism, and angst.
It is a bit of an overreach.
Former police officer Garland Nixon is a board member of the ACLU.
We have reached out continuously to the city for details for policies regarding how law enforcement officers interact, when they can they chase the children if they run.
The City Department of Social Services will be notified. Supporters say this is not about locking up kids. The goal is public safety. But studies indicate there's no correlation between curfew laws and a reduction in crime by or against juveniles.
Now, City Hall hopes to expand the number of these centers from 2 until 9 and go from weekends only to 24/7 year-round.
Well, some video gamers are outraged tonight over a brand new policy by the retailer GameStop. Anyone who wants to sell their used games at the Philadelphia stores will have to provide a fingerprint. The chain says it's following a Philadelphia law that allows the stores to collect thumbprints, then put them into a database to help police track down thieves.
And turning now to health news that could have a big impact on your life and your family.
Researchers with a biomedical technology company and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, are currently testing a contraceptive with wireless capabilities. It is a microchip that is implanted under the skin and can deliver tiny amounts of hormone like a birth control pill. Some experts point out that women already have implantable birth control options like the IUD, but many still choose the pill. Researchers plan to test this technology in women in 2016. The device would cost around $1,000. We'll have more on this story ahead today on Local 12 News at 5:30.
Open up your mailbox someday soon and you find a new credit card marked with a microchip. Credit card companies are making the move to protect all of us from hackers.
Well, credit card companies say that a microchip on your card is a better way to store your information and to keep you safe. A lot of these big name retailers are switching over to the microchip scanners.
You say you think most big stores are accepting the chip technology, but not all yet?
Well, I think they're switching over to it. I think it's going to be a process. I read something earlier tonight that said that credit card companies are telling stores to really get ready for this by the fall of 2015.
New at 6, it weighs 60,000 pounds. It's an armored tank designed to protect troops in a war zone. So what's it doing in Redwood City? Critics are crying foul. They don't want to see it on the peninsula.
It's big. That's the first thing that struck me.
It's hard to miss, 60,000 pounds and 13 feet tall. The bulletproof armored vehicle is a hand-me-down from the military. It has a new coat of paint, property of the Redwood City Police and SWAT team. It's part of a program where surplus military equipment is given to local law enforcement agencies.
It's simply a way to move our officers around in a protected environment and possibly evacuate civilians and people in emergency incidents.
It's called an MRAP. It stands for Mine Resistant Ambush Protected. Holly Lezo calls it unnecessary. She thinks war equipment has no place in Redwood City.
Is this a dangerous place that we're in that they need that? Like, is there something they're not telling us?
SWAT teams have been a part of crime fighting for decades, especially trained officers who, in addition to their regular assignments, respond immediately to the most dangerous crime scenes. But IMPD is no longer using a part-time SWAT team. Its team has become full-time.
Chief High came to me a few months ago and said that he thought it was time for Indianapolis to have a full-time SWAT team to deal with some of the high crime areas that we have.
Riggs gave the go-ahead.
It's up and running. They're using them quite frequently throughout the week.
And they work the so-called hotspot areas in the city. Director Riggs says full-time SWAT officers are prepared in a way that other officers are not.
Now to the battle over your Second Amendment right, with one judge saying Americans have no right to carry a gun beyond their own doorstep or their house.
2008 bill, the Supreme Court said Americans have a fundamental right to keep and bear arms, but some states are trying to limit that decision, saying the right to own a gun ends when you leave the house.
Rioting in a St. Louis suburb, police using tear gas to break up looting overnight. All this after a police officer shot and killed an unarmed teenager.
Overnight, on fire and out of control.
It's a free-for-all here.
North of St. Louis, thieves ruled the night, ransacking local businesses. Police armed with riot gear couldn't keep up.
We're out here at Quick Trip with him.
Watch as people of all ages loot this convenience store and then burn it down.
Fired Solway and Ellison.
This tire store was one of several businesses that were broken into. People taking tires, hubcaps, and car rims. Protesters faced off against police in riot gear. Dozens were arrested.
Our helicopter got shot at.
It's not clear what led to the police shooting Saturday afternoon. Brown was walking with a friend to his grandmother's in this predominantly African-American St. Louis suburb when his friend says the police officer drove by and told them to get off the street. Several shots were fired. Brown hit more than once. Police confirmed the teen was unarmed.
It's just the tip of the iceberg. The world's descending into chaos.
With the world's attention fixed on the crises in Gaza and Ukraine, Syria has faded from the headlines. Pretty incredible when you consider Syria just experienced what might be its bloodiest week of fighting since the civil war began 3 years ago.
Morning's headlines. USA Today says Russian bombers increase flights around American airspace. A U.S. Air Command official acknowledges Russian strategic bombers and other military aircraft entered air defense zones 16 times in the last 10 days. Fighter jets scrambled several times. The spike in activity comes amid the crumbling relations between Russia and the West over Ukraine.
Centers for Disease Control tonight elevated the Ebola virus to level 1 status, and here's what that means. It's their highest level of mobilization reserved for their largest scale response, requiring an agency-wide effort because the outbreak is now officially out of control, and this is a major escalation and a big measure of the fear of it spreading around the world.
In Liberia, contaminated bodies are being dumped in the street.
That it's out of control in the West African countries.
Now to the deadly Ebola outbreak and the concerns around the globe. The World Health Organization this morning declared an international public health emergency. It says countries simply cannot control the spread.
This outbreak is the largest ever.
I do think Ebola will come to America. That's not a question of if, it's just when.